Do you struggle with low self-confidence? Have you ever wondered where that may have come from? More importantly, have you ever wondered what you can actually do about it? Well, stick with me, as today we're going to dive into where low self-confidence comes from, but more importantly, what we can do to rebuild it. I'm your host, Daniel James, and if you're new here, welcome. So for me, when it comes to self-confidence, the analogy that I like to use is that you're walking around with a rucksack on, and every single experience and interaction that you have from a young age all the way up until adulthood will either make your backpack heavier or make it lighter. And if you have things like criticism, rejection, tough times, your backpack is going to be filled and it's going to get heavier and heavier and heavier. And you're going to be walking around with this really low self-confidence. However, on the other hand, if you have really good positive experiences that actually build you up, or someone tells you how to empty that rucksack, you're going to walk around with quite a good amount of self-confidence. So why do people struggle with self-confidence? Why does this bag get full of these negative things? Well, the first thing is that we need to understand the brain has a built-in negativity bias. Now, this comes from our ancient brain. And this is something that you may have heard spoken about before, either on social media or on other podcasts that you listen to. But our brain has not developed much in about 2,000 years. It hasn't really developed at all, really. Now, the problem with that is the world around us has. And we have a bias towards negativity because back in the days, when we were walking around as cavemen, that would have kept us alive. Because when something positive happens, we didn't really need to pay much attention to that. But when we had a negative experience, let's say we were face head on with a tiger or a lion, we needed to remember that negative experience in case we end up in that situation again. And then we'll be playing ourselves how to get into that situation. What happened next time? Okay, cool. And we just replay it and it gets imprinted because that's what keeps us alive. It's really, really useful, but not in the modern world. Because we need to remember those threats because that's what keeps us safe. And in modern days, what happens is you do a presentation, let's say, and you receive 9 positive bits of feedback, how amazing you were, how confident you were, how much people enjoyed it. And then you get that one bit of negativity. And that is what you remember. That's the exact same thing. Because we need to focus on negativity because that's how we learn survival. So that's the first way that our brain is kind of conditioned and why we get this low self-confidence, because we remember all the negatives and they kind of just sit there replaying over and over again. Now, the second reason why we may have low self-confidence is that we live in a world of constant comparison, which is, as we know, massively amplified by social media. Now, back in the day, let's go back to Mr. Caveman, we needed to fit in because fitting in meant survival. So we'd be in this group and we'd be looking around all the people in our little group and think, yep, I'm fitting in, they're doing that, I'm doing this, cool. I fit in, everything's good, I'm comparing myself and I'm not doing too bad. Nowadays, we're not just comparing ourselves with the small group of people in our circle, we're comparing ourselves to the entire world. And that can be very, very heavy. And because of social media, what's happening is we're comparing other people's highlight reels to our bad days. So we'll be there and we'll be having a bad day and we'll go on social media and we'll see someone doing something and we're like, oh my God, I'm such a loser, I'm such a failure. Not taking a step back and realizing that you're just seeing what that person wants you to see. No one is posting everything on social media. If you're a long-term listener of the show, you will know I'm very open, honest, and transparent. But even me, I'm only sharing with you what I want you to see. Your favorite influencers, no matter how transparent and upfront they seem, they're only sharing with you what they want you to see. So you're only seeing someone's highlight reel or the bits of vulnerability they want to show. So now we feel like we've been left behind. Now we feel less than. Now we feel like we're not good enough. We feel like in that tribal mentality, we now feel like we're the bottom of the pack. We're looking around, comparing like, wow, I'm the worst one here. But you're not just doing it with your pack, you're doing it with the whole world. And it's just not reality. It just simply is not the case. And the third way that we start to struggle with self-confidence, or why we start to struggle with self-confidence, is something that psychologists term the spotlight effect. Now, the spotlight effect is basically where we overestimate how much others notice or remember our mistakes, because we think we're the center stage of the universe, and we think everyone else is looking at us. We think that we're on this big stage and the spotlight's pointed on us, and the rest of the world is constantly looking at us. But here's the thing. Every single person has this spotlight effect. So no one's really paying that much attention to you, because they're paying attention to them because they think the spotlight's on them. But because we think it's constantly on us, we amplify things. We think that all our mistakes, people are going to see, remember, and people are always going to be talking about us, when the fact of the matter is, most people aren't, and most people don't care. Now, there's deeper things there, because maybe behind closed doors, you say stuff about other people, which is why you think other people say stuff about you. But that's not in the scope of this podcast. So now we've kind of established 3 ways and reasons why we can struggle with self-confidence. Let's look at 3 ways at how we can actually improve self-confidence. Now, the first way is to master small, consistent wins. I call it winning the day. Because confidence, this self-confidence, is built through evidence. So also the reason why I may be struggling with self-confidence is because you're not doing anything. If you are not doing anything or have not done anything to feel confident about, of course you're going to have low self-confidence. So we need to then start building evidence that tells our brain, no, we're doing good, we're doing okay. And this can start with small wins. Small things can be like making the bed in the morning, getting your steps in. And again, when I say getting your steps in, if you're really sedentary lifestyle. Don't know why it didn't come out of my mouth properly. Don't go from doing 2,000 steps a day, trying to get 10,000. Can you just do 5,000 consistently? Then 7,500, then 10,000. And it might even look like, with these small little wins, just drinking 2 big glasses of water a day, 2 pint glasses of water a day. But they're small little things. Because what happens is we tend to break promises to ourselves. We set these big, massive goals. And again, we're at the start of January. How many of you set out at the start of the year with these great intentions, yet once again, you've fallen short? This also leads to self-confidence issues. Because you'll keep breaking promises to yourself. You set these big, massive goals. You know you can't achieve it. You set yourself up for failure. And then guess what? You now think that you're a liar. And how many times has a friend, co-worker, colleague, family member lied to you over and over and over again? And let me ask you, how much confidence do you have in them? When they say they're going to do something, do you feel confident they're going to do it? The answer is no. And yet that's the exact same relationship that you have with yourself, because you break promises to yourself. So start small. Small promises to yourself, small wins, they compound up over time. And then this creates something called behavioral activation, which is essentially the more we accomplish, the more confident we feel. And then the more confident we feel, the more challenges we're willing to take on, which is why we're starting small here, saying 5,000 steps, making the bed, drinking 2 glasses of water. They're very small things, but the small things become the big things. How do you build a house? Brick by brick, 1 small brick at a time. That's how it works. And sometimes trying to go for this big crazy thing, we don't need to go big and crazy. We need to start small and build up. The reason why you feel like such a failure and got no confidence is because you keep trying to go all crazy to start off with, and you've got no confidence in yourself to do it. So start small and build up. Second way that we can build this confidence back again is reframing self-talk with evidence. Because a lot of the time, the reason why we lack confidence is that little voice inside our head is, you're a loser, you're a failure, you're this, you're that. And again, it adds more stuff into that backpack we spoke about at the start. So this lack of self-confidence that we have can come from a distorted self-perception. And your self-perception is essentially how you think of yourself. So how you see yourself in the world. Now, there's something you can do called winning journaling. Now, long-term listeners, you'll hear me talk about journaling all the time. I talk about gratitude journaling. I talk about journaling for essentially self-coaching. But you can also do win journaling. And that is essentially where you write down all of your wins. It could be the wins for the day. For example, that for 5 days in a row, you've eaten healthy. 5 days in a row, you've drank your water. 5 days in a row, you've hit your steps. This, by the way, is how habit trackers work, and they kind of get you locked into that. But which is a good positive thing. But it could also be things you've achieved, maybe certificates you've won, maybe awards that you've won, maybe praise that you've received. What you're doing, you have this journal of things that give you evidence that you aren't this negative, useless, low self-confident person that you think you are. It could be, for example, that you've got an issue with confidence when it comes to speaking. However, in the past, you have maybe won an award, or you've spoken in front of 500 people, whatever it may be, or you've had some compliments for going on a podcast and being a guest. All of these things, if you write them down, you can then use them as evidence, so that when this negative voice is saying, "Oh my God, you're going to fail, you're not going to be able to do this," you have this thing that actually contradicts what that voice is telling you, and actually it comes back to you and it's saying, "Do you know what? I can do this, and I know that I can do this because look at all these evidence to back it up." So this evidence thing is such a powerful thing that, once again, we don't tend to think about. So the first thing that we spoke about to building confidence was small wins. The second thing is reframing this self-talk with evidence-based stuff. And the third and final way that we can build confidence, and by the way, at the end, I'm going to explain how these build on top of each other, these three things, they work together, is to embrace controlled discomfort. We embrace controlled discomfort. Because confidence comes from knowing that you can handle challenges. Again, you're confident in yourself. You're confident in your ability to handle whatever this challenge throws at you. So we need to put ourselves into situations that prove we can handle these little challenges that are coming up. So we need to start small and then build up in a controlled way. So let's say you're lacking confidence, like social confidence, like you're talking to strangers, for example, and maybe you can't find a date, you don't want to go on dating apps, whatever that may be. The way that you can implement this controlled discomfort is going into your local barista shop, coffee shop, and just talk to the barista. Their job is to hold a conversation so you can practice with them. Rather than just saying that, "Oh, hey, how are you?" Try something new. "How was your weekend? Doing anything after the shift?" Whatever it may be, something small. And then from there, you can take the next step. And what's the next step? Talking to a stranger in a supermarket. Again, it could be about anything. But can you see how talking to the barista, whose job it is to talk to you, that then builds confidence to then speak to a stranger in the supermarket? And then from there, we can take it into a meeting. In a very small meeting, can you just share one thing that you're thinking about rather than just keeping quiet? Because this creates something called progressive desensitization, which is essentially where you just desensitize yourself to these situations. And this is, once again, where we kind of get it wrong and we go from 0 to 100. Straight off the bat, we try and do something big and crazy and it overwhelms us. But can we slowly desensitize ourselves to those little situations that cause us issues? Because that massively helps us. Now, the way that these three steps help build confidence is step number 1, the small little tasks, the small little wins. That builds the foundations. That rebuilds that relationship with yourself where you're saying something and you're keeping that promise to yourself. The second step, where we spoke about, get back in here again, where we spoke about reframing that self-talk, that then mentally reinforces your progress, because every time you do something, you're jotting it down. And when you're jotting it down, you can go back to it and be like, well, no, actually, I am doing the thing I said I'm going to do. And then the third step, that then expands your comfort zone. So when you do all three of these things, it will slowly take you from somebody that's really struggling with self-confidence to having that better relationship with yourself. The one relationship that you need to work on is the one with yourself, because you are the one that needs you. I hope you found value from today's episode. If you think someone can take some value out of this episode, maybe someone that you know that struggles a little bit with self-confidence, send it over to them. And if you've enjoyed this, think about giving us a like, because it massively helps with the YouTube algorithms. Until next time, take it easy.